sunny. We're not about to leave, but we're going to be a little warmer here. Some business with the Democratic Party.
We're not here.
Oh, you don't have to lie to us.
They are not here right now.
They have space here. We have some business with the space
There's
that's
no public
hosting.
meeting at this time. You are not welcome. I asked you to leave.
You just did.
Please leave.
We're not allowed in. This seems to be the best place for us to deliver our message to the National Democratic Party. So those who are involved in the message, let's proceed as planned. That the National Defense Authorization Act signed by President Obama 2 days ago represents an act of aggression toward constitutionally protected rights in the United States and is the first step towards another war of oil in the Middle East via the escalation of sanctions against Iran. The people lying before you represent the victims of the 1%'s war on democracy both at home and abroad. We are determined to remain here until Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, agrees to meet with us to discuss our demands that corporate money be removed from national politics and civil liberties be restored to their primary position in all public policy. We seek a discussion about how the Democratic Party will stop serving the interests of Wall Street and corporate money and start putting people before profits.
I'm just curious, do any of you people know what the National Defense Authorization Act talks about? Do you have any concern personally about the stipulations in the National Defense Authorization Act? And you know what it does to your personal liberties? You don't know or you don't care?
Takes them away. Come Captain, Des Moines Police Department. The manager has asked everyone to read this
private property. At this point, I want to advise you, if you do not leave, you will be arrested for criminal trespass. So, this is your warning. Please get up and leave, otherwise you're going to be subject to arrest for criminal trespass.
So can you strip it down, because I was just commenting to somebody from other channels. What's fascinating about NDAA is obviously people that are engaged in Occupy Wall Street understand the implications.
Sure.
And Ron Paul supporters, ironically, on the other side, understand the implications. But most Americans have no idea what's contained inside. Like, for instance, talk about how Americans can actually be detained by their government without any due process.
Yeah, NDAA, what it does is it allows for Americans to be detained indefinitely without being taken to court for a fair trial, that their rights are afforded to them by the Constitution. The NDAA does away with that. And while Obama has put in a signing statement that he's not for that, he's not going to be the only president that ever serves.
Well, and there's already been an example of Americans, of an American put in jail.
Absolutely.
4 years.
Bradley Manning's
an example, but also Padilla back in the back 5-6 years ago was in jail for 4 years without even being able to talk to an attorney.
99% push back against that. The danger is that our government, who's being controlled by the 1%, can continue to start saying, "Oh, you've done this. Well, that's a terrorist move. We're going to put you in jail." It's a slippery slope of what is terrorism and coming at the American people.
What can be used against one can be used against all.
Absolutely.
So talk about the frustration that a growing number of Americans feel, whether they're on the right or the left, whether they're Democrats, whether they're Republicans, that we actually have a government in Washington, D.C. that seems to be further and further, more and more disconnected.
Absolutely.
From average working Americans.
Absolutely. This is a perfect example of it. The 99% showed up and said we wanted a civil discourse with the chairwoman of the DNC, and she's refusing to hear from us. This is a microcosm of what's happening all over the country, is that the politicians are listening to those who have exorbitant amounts of money. Look at who the top 10 donators are to the DNC. It's people who have money. It's corporations who have money. It's hedge funds. It's not the average working people that you see all around you right now. It's what's happening.
MSNBC, I don't know.
Morning, Joe Scarborough. Morning, Joe. Joe Scarborough.
Yesterday really bothered me when he signed the NDAA Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, because we could potentially be viewed as terrorists because we are a threat to his re-election campaign, and I am a former Obama precinct captain. And I'm angry as hell with him at how he's failed to do his job, how he's constantly kowtowed to the Republicans. He hasn't stood up to the Wall Street. In fact, you know, when Wall Street people were the folks that he was put in his cabinet. So that right there says he is not about the people.
In the current election cycle, the DNC has received $145,900 from Goldman Sachs, $96,318 from Citigroup, $122,400 from Grosvenor Capital Management, the hedge fund. They specialize in hedge funds. $569,000 from PACs, and then $124,650 from Capital Group companies.
That ain't right.
This is why we need to continue to remind our country and the Democratic National Committee and President Obama that the real terrorists are on Wall Street. The real terrorists are not Occupy Wall Streeters, Occupy members across the nation, and they certainly are not in the sovereign nation of Iran, which is what NDAA is targeting. We need to remind them by these numbers that the biggest threat to national security in the country of the United States are the Wall Street corporations that are padding the pockets of the Democratic National Committee.
We're not the ones that you should be arresting. We're not the ones that you should be arresting. We're not the ones that you should be arresting. We're not the ones that you should be arresting. We're not the ones that you should be arresting. We're not the ones that you should be arresting. We're not the ones that you should be arresting. We're not the ones you should be arresting. We're not the ones you should be arresting. We're not the ones you should be arresting.